Hello guys, welcome to Tech Mode. And today this is the part 3 of the Jmeter performance testing with Jmeter. And in this tutorial we are going to cover the components of Jmeter. It's a basic building block of learning Jmeter. Alright, let's get started. So previously in the previous tutorial, in the part 2 we have covered about what is test plan, thread groups, samplers and listeners. So as you can see in the diagram also, we have used all the things, the main components that we can see of the JMeter. So the first four are the covered in the part 2 of this the tutorial. You can watch the tutorial, and if you have followed up. So in this tutorial we are going to cover the last components, major component that JMeter required are assertions, config elements, logic controllers and timers. So let's start with again the symbol diagram that we have shown. So this is the structure of JMeter component. Give me 1 second. All right. So this is a structure of JMeter components, or you can say just JMeter full-fledged project. We have a test plan, we have thread groups, and after that we followed by certain JMeter component that we are going to discuss. So let's move on to assertion. So assertion basically are you can say whatever is expected, we are going to check it out with our actual we are getting. So the matching of the actual result with the expected result is assertions, right? So what we can do is that, so what we have done in the previous tutorial, we have added certain samplers. So samplers are basically kind of requests, and we have added certain listeners. But how do we verify that the requests that we have already sent are correct, and whatever we have received are basically current, and we can move to next request and to test it out. So for example, let me give you a very simple example. We have made one request that basically gives you 200 OK response, and we have to verify that if we get the 200 OK, then only we move to next request. And if we are doing a performance testing, if the first fails, then we don't have to continue our rest of the request, because the first one fails and we are not completing our task, and it's a kind of, you can say, blocker in the performance testing script that we are going to write, right? So the same thing that we will happen here. So we have lots of different kind of assertion that we can do. The first one related to the response assertion. So whatever the request that we make using samplers, and whatever the response we get, we can use this response assertion uh, script, you can say, or you can say component uh, in our JMeter script to verify what the response of our sampling request. The second one related to the duration assertion. For example, you can mention the how much duration it will take for your request. And third and fourth and fifth are related to size, XML and HTML assertions. For example, if you have made a get request to HTML or XML and you want to verify its size or particular tags elements are missing or not, then you can do is that you can use those assertions and verify accordingly. So enough of theoretical example. Let's do one thing. Let's switch on to JMeter. And in the previous example, what we have done is that we had our first test plan, and we added one thread group which contains 10 number of concurrently users will come on 1 second, and we have a loop count 1. And we have added a simple request to google.com, but we should add to our server. So let me do one thing. Let me add my website. Let me add my website to load test so that no one can claim this tutorial. All right. So, and we have added one listener. This is a listener, and let's do one thing: clear away results. And we have added a listener which is a view results tree. What we are going to do is that so whatever the HTTP request I will make, I want to verify it in using response assertion. So what I will click is that click on it, write assertion and response assertion. So whatever request I will make, it subsequently after it response assertion is there. So I can do one thing. I can just do response code. Let's say it contains, or and what we can do is that here we can enter Node pattern we are going to match. Yeah, I can say 200 and add custom failure. No, we are not going to add custom failure here. So response assertion, and whatever the response we are getting, we can add here. All right. So what we have done is that we have changed our HTTP request. So this is a simple request. You can say what it does is that let me show you. So whenever you make a simple GET request to JSON, it returns its user ID with one, and it's a JSON response we're getting. So what we have done is that we have added one assertion, response assertion, which basically what it does is that it just checks if the response contain user ID 1, and we are just checking with text response and contains. And as you can see, I have run it. So what I will do is that again run it, and the response assertion will not give you any kind of error or anything, and else it means it's worked perfectly fine. If it gives you error, and if you see a red mark here, it means that assertion fails, and you can look around in your assertion what exactly failed. So this is how assertion work. You can add any kind of assertion you want. For example, you can add your duration assertion, HTML assertion, or bean cell assertion. So when we are going to use extensively in Jenkins in upcoming tutorials, we are going to use certain kind of these assertions, and we'll explore more about it. All right. So let's move on to next Jmeter component part. The the most important one, you can say. These are basically the config elements. So config elements basically are, you can say, the request sent to the server can be further parameterized using some config elements. So config elements are basically kind of elements that you can send using to your request. For example, what you can do is that you can use CSV data set. For example, if you wanted to use certain kind of variables from your CSV file, Excel file, then you can use this config element, CSV dataset config, where you can set the path of your CSV file, and it will pick it up for you and append it in your sampler or your request. You can use user defined variables, and these are comes under config elements. And what you can do is another thing you can use, that you can make a one HTTP request default. For example, suppose you have a one website in your test plan, and you don't want it to use copy paste this name to every request. What you can do is that you can just add one default request, that it will go to scrolltest.com, and after that in the next request and all, you just mentioned your parameters, automatically the default one will be pick it up. And another two of them are related to like cache and cookie managers though. So these are the things that require. For example, you have a particular login, and after login your cookie so server creates certain cookies, and you have to maintain that cookie in your whole session of your test plan or whole kind of request, and you have to pass those things into your next request and all. What you can do is that you use this cache manager or cookie manager. They will basically take care of everything. So we'll look around more of them in the next upcoming tutorial. These are just, you can say, basic building points that I am going to discuss. So the last one, or you can say important ones, are the logic controllers and timers. So logic containers basically, you can say, help them to control your geometer flow. So these are the basically kind of, you can say, uh, programmatically, whenever you wanted to use in your request. For example, if this request fails, then you have to do this. So this logic controller, what you can do, you add them in your request. For example, if you wanted to use for loop in your flow of performance testing, you can use logic controllers. You wanted to use timers. For example, after certain time you wanted to execute this request, and whatever it is, timeout and all, you can use them into your request. So we'll look around more into whenever we are creating an intense JMeter scripts and all in the upcoming tutorial. And let me show you how you can add logic controllers and all. So this is our basic test request, and what you can do is that you just you can add certain constant time. So for example, I have one request. Let me get it outside. So I have one HTTP request, and suppose I'll just duplicate it, and I have two requests. I want a constant timeout between them. So after this request, a constant timeout to 300 millisecond, and after that this request again will execute for So this is the flow that I want. I can use them according to this thing. And one more, the logic controller. We can add any logic controller, and we can mention our code in it, and we'll discuss more in the next coming tutorials about how we can use if controller, for loop controller and all, to get the most out of in the JMeter. All right, guys. So that's all about Jmeter components, theoretical aspects, and with certain little bit about a practical example. And in the upcoming tutorial, what we are going to do is that we'll create our Jmeter script from scratch, and we'll make them run against our server, and we'll put them into a Jenkins, and we'll try to use Docker if possible to get our continuous integration and continuous delivery. So if you have any doubt, anything that you wanted to uh, ask me, you can ask me on comments on and let me know. And please like, share, and subscribe to my video for and see you in the next tutorial. Bye.